It begins in the quiet moments, not the holy quiet of a chapel echoing with reverence, but the anxious silence of a mind running mad behind composed eyes. You've prayed. You've read the verses. You've posted the verse on your bathroom mirror. Philippians 4:6, scrawled in Sharpie like a secret weapon. You trust God. You believe in His promises. And yet, your chest still tightens at 2 a.m. Your mind still loops those relentless what-ifs like a scratched vinyl of doubt. You wake up with faith on your lips but fear in your lungs. What gives? This is the paradox too few Christians want to talk about. The gritty, gut-wrenching, soul-bending tension between belief and biology, between trust and trembling. The uncomfortable truth that yes, even spirit-filled saints still get sleepless nights and shaky hands. Even warriors of the word battle worry. And this is not a failure of faith. It is the friction of being fully human. Christian culture, especially in its more performative corners, has a tendency to oversimplify things. Just pray more. Let go and let God. If you're anxious, you're not trusting Him enough. These pious platitudes, often well-meaning, sometimes even scripturally referenced, can become swords that slice deeper into already bleeding hearts. The suggestion is subtle but severe. If you were really a believer, anxiety wouldn't touch you. But that's not theology. That's toxic positivity dressed up in a Bible verse. Scripture does not scrub away suffering. It reveals it in raw relief. Elijah, fresh off calling fire down from heaven, fell into a pit of despair and begged God to take his life. David, the man after God's own heart, penned psalms soaked in sorrow and sleeplessness. Even Christ himself in the garden sweat blood under the weight of cosmic dread. The Bible doesn't hide anxiety, it highlights it. Not as a defect of faith, but as a feature of frail flesh navigating a fractured world. Faith is not anesthesia. It does not numb us from the ache of living. It is not a divine Xanax that erases fear with a single swallow. Faith is more like a compass in a storm. It doesn't stop the lightning, but it gives you direction when the sky is falling. It reminds you there is a shore, even when you can't see it. Trust in God does not guarantee immunity from anxiety. It gives you a place to bring it. Anxiety, after all, is deeply embodied. It's not merely a mood or a mindset. It's chemical, cellular, encoded into our nervous systems like hidden scars. Trauma, genetics, stress hormones, childhood wounds, these don't evaporate on command. The spirit may be willing, but the synapses misfire. And Christians, for all our spiritual renewal, still live in bodies marred by the fall. The thorns and thistles of Eden grow just as fiercely in the brain as in the soil. And then there's the spiritual warfare, the unseen entanglements, the whispered accusations, the ancient enemy who knows just which lies to loop through your mind. He's not bothered by the fact that you go to church. He's threatened when you begin to live in the radical peace of Christ. So he distorts it. He casts doubt, not just on God's presence, but on your own adequacy as a believer. He turns your anxiety into an indictment. You're a fraud, he hisses. Real Christians don't feel this way. But that's a lie dressed as doctrine. What if instead we let go of the performance and embraced the paradox? What if we saw anxiety not as the absence of faith, but as an invitation to deeper intimacy with God? Not a shameful secret to hide, but a sacred ache that keeps us clinging to the cross. What if the presence of anxiety doesn't mean you're far from God, but that you're human and need Him desperately? There is something strangely holy about a heart that quivers but still reaches for the divine, a faith that has been bloodied by doubt yet still burns. The anxious believer, hands trembling, lifting them in worship anyway. That's not weak faith. That's warrior faith. That's the faith that says, even though my flesh is failing, even though my thoughts betray me, I will still trust. That is the Psalm 56:3 confession. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. Not if, but when. Jesus never said don't feel anxious. He said, don't be anxious. A call not to suppress emotion, but to entrust it. To carry your burdens into the presence of the one who was burdened for you. He doesn't condemn the anxious. He invites them in. "Come to me," he says, "all you who are weary, all you who are heavy laden, all you whose hearts beat too fast and whose thoughts won't slow down." He doesn't demand composure, he offers rest. But let's not over-sanitize this rest. It is not always instant. Sometimes it is a process, an unfolding, a gritty grind of grace that rewires you over years. Sometimes it looks like prayer, sometimes therapy, sometimes medication, sometimes all three, and none of that makes you less Christian. Sometimes trusting God means taking the meds. Sometimes faith is the courage to book the counseling session. Sometimes it is the discipline to say, "I'm not okay," and mean it. We are, after all, creatures of complexity, dust and divinity, spirit and skin. We live in the already and the not yet. We are redeemed but not yet restored. And so, the ache lingers. But so does the hope. Anxiety, in its cruelest moments, makes you feel alone, like no one sees, no one understands. But the gospel says otherwise. It says you are known, held, chosen, fought for. It says the Prince of Peace steps into your storm and whispers, "I'm with you," not from a distance, but from within the chaos. Perhaps anxiety, unwanted though it is, becomes a strange sort of altar, a place where pride dies, where control is surrendered, where we realize that faith was never about feeling fearless, it was about staying close. Even when the voices rage, even when your hands shake, even when peace feels like a distant rumor, the ones who keep coming back, those are the faithful. So maybe we stop pretending. Maybe we stop hiding behind empty smiles and spiritual cliches. Maybe we create communities where vulnerability is valor, where prayer and Prozac aren't mutually exclusive, where testimony includes, "I struggle, but I haven't quit." Maybe we finally admit that sometimes even the strongest believers need to borrow hope. And that's okay. Because grace was never about earning, and peace was never about perfection. It's a person, and he is not repelled by your anxiety. He's right there, in the breathless moments, in the clenched fists, in the swirling storms of your soul. Closer than your pulse, stronger than your fears. So yes, Christians still struggle with anxiety. But that struggle is not a sign of spiritual failure. It is often the very soil in which deeper dependence grows. It is not the enemy of faith. It can be the ember that keeps you kneeling. And maybe, just maybe, it is in those moments of trembling that we learn the truest kind of trust. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to believe anyway. Even when the waves don't part, even when the healing doesn't come fast, even when peace is a whisper, not a shout, he is still God, and you are still his.
Smash that like button, drop a comment, and hit subscribe. Then check out Faith Mode, where premium streetwear meets gospel grit. faithmode.com